So I did a video like this before about Mihajlo Mudryk, who is obviously a very talented player, who is somebody that people are really excited about, but is in terms of training age, which is like a you'll hear that phrase in strength and conditioning a lot, is how many years of like focused elite level training have been put into this athlete, and normally it's to do with like weightlifting. Uh, but Mihajlo Mudryk is like a low training age guy for a 23-year-old prospect, and people like that video, and I think it's a cool thing to talk about how you can use data to coach these players. And a player I have been watching with like real appetite is Tyrique George, because he is one of the most dominant youth level players we've seen. He's extremely highly regarded by everybody, and he's getting minutes. He's getting minutes at Chelsea at a much earlier age than most prospects have historically. The only other prospects that I can think about getting kind of the run he's getting at 18 are like Hudson-Odoi is kind of the one that comes to mind, at least in attacking positions. There have been others who've gotten some looks, but really it's a pretty big step pretty early. And the thing with young players is that you have a lot of opportunity to shape them into what they're going to become before they settle into what they are, if that makes sense. And I want to talk about that because I think it's fun to talk about. So, first off, Tyrique George is already, like, at youth levels, a statistical monster. Okay? Monster. If you look, the top two bars are from Y Scout. This is his PL2 data. So, like, per 90, he's putting up north of an expected goal and an expected assist. That's not including penalties. He has 6 passes into the penalty area. That is huge. Like, a player who does 3 passes into the penalty area is insanely productive. He's taking 5 shots a game. He's creating 5 shots a game. This is like obscene statistical output for PL2. And PL2 doesn't translate amazingly to senior football. But like, to give you a comparative example, Cole Palmer was like a 0.7 XG plus XA PL2 guy. So again, it's not perfect. Like, you can't say, well, it's higher, so Tyrique George is going to be better than Cole Palmer. But he is in a class of his own, really, along with other players like Harvey Vale, who are like way too good for PL2 at this point. In a class of his own as a creator in youth football. There was a good tweet from Nathan Evans, who is an Opta fellow, who was saying he has created 26 chances in Premier League 2 this season, the joint most of any player alongside Harvey Vale. He's second for completed dribbles, third for assists and touches in the opposition box, fourth for passes played into the box. And he is doing that with substantially fewer minutes than others because he's been spending some time with the first team, which means sometimes he misses PL2 games. And from this place, I think, is a good place to get into the video, because what is clear is, from an output perspective at youth football, he's very, very good. And I don't really want to show the first team minutes stuff because there's so few of them. But the output, and it's weird to do like per 90 stuff when he has like 4 sub appearances and then 1 start. It ends up being very wonky. So I think this might be a good place to start with the video. And let's do this here. So we got some Tyrique George clips, and let me adjust the size, and maybe this stuff I'll cut from the YouTube video. So I watched everything he did for the first team, and I watched mostly only first team stuff because, again, we know he can dominate at youth level, so I thought it was important to just start here. And so one thing that's very common and is difficult when we're talking about translating first team and youth football is that Tyrique George has played almost exclusively on the left for the youth team, sometimes as a 10, sometimes as a 9, but almost exclusively on the left, whereas with the first team, he's played mostly on the right. But what we see is that he has a tremendous ability to create separation from markers. He is very good at creating space to drive inside with shoulder feints and good chops and like changes of direction to create space. Again, he is very comfortable going with both feet, which is really nice for young players. It opens up a lot of developmental avenues if they can really attack with both feet. One thing we've seen is that he's very good at using his pace to start 1v1 dribble attempts, where there was like a really viral tweet years and years and years ago from Seb C about Hudson-Odoi, where when wingers want to receive to go 1v1, you need the space to receive to build up speed. If you receive really, really close to the fullback's just going to jam you, and you have no ability to attack right after receiving. And what Tyrique George does a very good job of is creating separation between himself and the fullback, and then giving the space to go and attack his fullback 1v1. And because he can really attack both ways, whether it's to cross or to shoot, it opens up a lot of avenues for it to be difficult for defenders to deal with him. One of the other things that I think stands out very clearly is that he has excellent passing vision, right? Like, he's loaded up almost into a 1v3. You have nobody really to connect with unless you play with Guiu here, but you have an overload at the back post. Like, this is really good recognition, and it's the absolute right type of pass, right? Like, it's mostly flat because it's going to get there quickly, and it's shaped in behind to lead Jeff Felix to attack it. I think a lot of young players here would have tried to play Mudryk and not Felix to be safer. And that's a pretty exciting sign. And again, he just repeatedly is so good at create separation, get good shots off. Like, again, the level of the opposition has to be taken into account, but also he's 18 and like these are his first senior minutes. It's nice to see him really driving at people decisively, and it's not ponderous. And we saw in preseason, right? Like, I was at this game, and I actually came away from this game somewhat negative on Tyrique. Like, I thought, okay, like he's not at the level yet, and I think that's fine. Like, Wrexham are a very physical team, but I thought one of the things that I liked is that he absolutely was not scared to keep going into 1v1s even when he was rustled physically. I think another thing we've seen is his connections are actually quite good, which can often be a thing that we don't see with young players, where all the time is condensed when you get to senior football, right? Like, it's way, way, way harder to bounce and lay off and hold up when you have a 28-year-old man kicking through the back of you than when you're holding off an 18-year-old. And I've been actually pretty happy with his ability to create separation and then use that separation to do other things. And again, it's very exciting to see how comfortable he is going both ways. It's very exciting to see his ability to maintain pace. It's very exciting to see kind of the different kinds of passes he has in his tool belt. And a thing that I'm going to talk about in the video we're going to assess him on, I think there's a lot of scope for him as an off-ball mover, where, like, watch these actions here where he plays into Carney and watch how deliberate and intense the movement off the ball is. We're like, okay, the runner gets picked up, so he pulls out of it, and that's fine. But imagine you have a fullback coming and what that opens just by making an intense run. And again, he plays here and makes a deft movement in behind. Like, Carney, there is worlds where Carney can totally slip this pass and he's in behind. And it doesn't come off. But that off-ball movement is really, really critically important. Here's another one where he ends up kind of 1v1 in that left channel. And again, he's very comfortable. he is a legitimate threat to beat you to the line. He is not just looking to get inside on his right foot. He is a legitimate threat to go to his left foot. And when you compare to someone like Nani Madueke, who like will nominally go to the byline, but the quality of service from his right foot is often lacking, even when it's like cutbacks or stand-ups, I think this half of things is really exciting. And so when you put together like, okay, at senior level, he clearly has the dribbling and the passing stuff. And he's shown a pretty good ability to get shots off. And again, the quality of the opposition is what it is. But he has definitely shown an ability to create separation and get decent shots. And sometimes his shot selection is lacking. There are things we can talk about there. But he has shown a pretty strong ability to create the separation and get shots off against real players. I thought the Noah game was like really good for him. I thought he showed a lot of ability to break that fullback down and then get into good creative positions, less than good shooting positions in this game. He had 1 shot, but he had 4 shot assists. But really, really nice passing stuff, right? And I think that's a good place to start. So in terms of coaching this, right? So there's like, we've watched the video, we see the youth stats, and it's like, okay, the kid is real. He can play, he can hang. And the video is like, all right, there's a lot of really positive things to start with. And for me, the coaching focus is going to be very little on ball. I think for me, my feel on this, and some people will agree, some people will disagree, is like these players, Tyrique Georges and Nani Madueke's and Cole Palmer's and whatever, are on such a different level in terms of thinking about the game and reading and reacting that, like, who am I to tell them what to do in the final third? I can give them ideas and I can shape them to like, hey, this is valuable. This is valuable. This is important. This is where we want to get. But like, who am I to tell Tyrique George when he's 1v1 against the fullback, oh, you have to do this to get past him? Like, there's no value to that coming from a coach, I don't think, right? At least not from me. Like, I was a goalkeeper. What do I know about dribbling past people 1v1? I know it's valuable. I know when you beat that player, these are where you should be looking for cutbacks and squares and whatever. And like, these are the trends and your shooting locations you should be thinking about. But kind of how you get there is a lot more in your realm. But the two things that I think are really important are off-ball stuff and defending, which is also off-ball. And so we'll talk about those with some clips and kind of how I would show him. But in terms of like general structure, right? In terms of general structure, there's it's really difficult for him because he's splitting his time between the first team and the PL2 team. So he has 2 match days every week. Like, this is not, when I did the Midger video, it's easy because he was never going to play PL2 games. So and Chelsea weren't in Europe. So you only have the 1 match a week to play in your schedule around. But with Tyrique George, you really have to balance, like, where is he playing? Who is he playing with? What's the travel? What's the gym work? What's the load? Because at the same time, he's 18. You don't want to have to get him injured. So from like a rough scheduling perspective, if you start from Monday, which I don't know, doesn't really make sense to start from as a week, but I guess let's start from Sunday. He will have a PL2 match day on the Friday or the Saturday frequently. They don't really play Sundays that often. That day after that is either going to be off or it's a regen session. So you're just kind of foam rolling, jogging, stretching, rondos, nothing crazy, but regen. This day is a really good day to do a recap video session. So looking back at the week that just happened. So whether that's the Conference League match day with the first team, but also the PL2 match day. And these give you really good opportunities for evaluating on the differences between the two. So like, what are you able to do in PL2 that you aren't able to do in the Conference League? Or what are you able to do in the Conference League that is different because of the level of opposition, physically, technically, tactically? So that gives you a lot of opportunity, right? And when you're talking about youth players, a lot of them is like the mental development of like everything is faster and the stakes are higher. If you make a mistake in a PL2 game, it doesn't really matter. If you make a mistake in a first team game, it does matter. And so these video sessions are a really good place where if you have a coach who's kind of aware of the pathway and also connected with the PL2 team and is watching all those games, those video sessions can be super, super important. After the Sunday, Monday and Tuesday are going to be the only real training days that he's going to get every week because he has 2 matches. And so you're going to have the team training. But after the team training, you have to be doing IDP work. IDP is individual development plan. A lot of the Premier League clubs now have coaches dedicated to IDP. And the real benefit is, can you get very specific ideas done? So we're going to talk about some stuff in the video, but if you want him to work on his off-ball movement to arrive at the back post, you can take 15, 20 minutes after training, because today the training sessions are not as long as they used to be. Very few people are training longer than an hour and a half. You can do finishing exercises for arriving at the back post. If you want to work at his ability to pick people out on the crosses, you can set that up for 15 minutes. And sometimes that'll be paired with a few other players who have similar development goals, or you might have a striker who needs to work on some finishing stuff with him, or whatever it is. You can do that work on Mondays. After that, you're going to have the team video stuff, and you're going to have gym work. A really, really big thing with someone at his age is, can you get them to their adult body? So if you compare Mo Salah when he first came to Chelsea versus Mo Salah now, that guy is a physical animal. You compare Bukayo Saka, who we're going to talk about Saka, you compare Bukayo Saka to when he started versus now, physical animal. Right? You compare it to any of these like high-level goal-scoring wingers, and a huge part of their development is they get hench. They get really strong. They get really strong to hold people off. They get really strong to get to their spots. And so someone like Tyrique doing the physical work to go from a very lean frame to putting muscle on is going to be important for him. And is going to be important if he wants to be like one of the best wingers in the world. And then you can do more player video, right? So this might be, we want to focus on developing a specific habit or technique or whatever it is that week. And you can do some short player video. And these blocks aren't like, you're not doing 2 hours of video with Tyrique, right? It might be 15 minutes. It might be, I'm going to show you 5 clips and we're going to talk about them. And then tomorrow after training, we're going to do a little thing. And that's it. I'm just going to prime you to start thinking about it. Or the team training session tomorrow is going to be this. And I'm going to give you 3 clips and we're going to talk about it. And I just want your brain to be primed to think about that. Tuesday, you're going to train with the team. You're going to do a little bit more IDP work afterwards. You're going to do some more gym work. And then you're probably traveling after training, because Wednesday you're training wherever the Conference League game is. Maybe it's at home and you don't have travel, but there's a good chance you're traveling. And then you have the Conference League game. You have the day after the Conference League game, which is going to be a regen session. Again, you're probably not doing too much there. You also have to recover from the mental load, right, of thinking about all the things you have to think about. And then you have your PL2 match day. So it's a pretty hectic schedule for him. And managing these is really difficult, but also very important. So the two areas that I would really focus on with him from a coaching perspective are defensively and off the ball as a runner. Defensively, I think a really important thing to think about is, for a young player, it's much more about like the floor than it is the ceiling that gets you on the field as a young player, where if you cannot mess up and not let the team down, it's way easier to play you. Like you look at Alfie Gilchrist, last year. Alfie Gilchrist was not an exceptional player by any means, but he never really made errors. So it's way easier to keep playing him. You know what I mean? And so when you talk about these players, right, especially the attackers, and not that I think Tyrique George is this, but sometimes it can be difficult to convince them that defending matters. And a good way to start with something like this is take a player that they may wish to emulate. So somebody like Bukayo Saka is somebody you might see as a similar, as like a goal for Tyrique George. He's a winger. He comes through for Arsenal. He plays for England, from London. Like, that's a good place to start. And so you can go, okay, in the data, we see Bukayo Saka was second in the Premier League for attacking third tackles last year. He was one of the most pressy attackers in the whole league. And then you can layer that in with, okay, Tyrique, these are your tactical instructions with the team, right? We have the 6 pressing to their 6. The wingers are managing the fullback, but sometimes you're going to have to come in. Sometimes you're going to have to jump to a center back. Here's what that looks like with your instructions. And then you can show clips. So I can break out for Tyrique George, I can break out, here's the Bukayo Saka video of him being really diligent defensively. He does a great job to take off the line, and as soon as he takes away the passing lane, now he closes, gets a tackle, we get to start a counter, and again, keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. Can you build that diligence? One of the best attackers in the world, and you're still pressing. Here's another clip. He jumps to the center back, gets played around, and look at the recovery out to the fullback. Look at the work to close the space. Very hard. This is a lot of work. This is 25 seconds into a game. One of the best wingers in the world, and he's chasing like a madman to stay connected and keep defending and keep working. Here's another one. Generates a high turnover just while working. Here's another one. Counter presses off a crazy moment. And so this whole thing is 39 seconds of clips. And you can sit down with Tyrique George, or you can sit down with somebody else and say, listen, this is an important part of the game, even for the best wingers in the world. I think we can talk about this more, and you can bring it to his attention, and you can focus on it in training, and you can bring it up in the post-match video and the pre-match video and the IDP video, and it's a good place to prime him. And so this is something that I would really focus on with him, where because of his physical talent, he's very quick. He actually has the capability to be quite an impactful presser at the senior level, especially if you build really good habits there. And when you're talking about the future of Chelsea, like, having someone who is an elite attacking output player but also a very good defender is so valuable to your team. So that's the first thing I would look at. The second thing I would look at is off the ball. Total Football, who's like a big stats follow, he had this great tweet: whenever I like a soccer player, it's because he gets in the box. And there's this great stat that the average player only has the ball for something like 2 minutes of every game. And Tyrique is very good on the ball already, and he's shown inklings of being very good off the ball. And I think there's a lot of scope to improve where he arrives in the box, where he gets his shots. And like, here's a map of Raheem Sterling in 2017-2018, and you can see, like, look how low the probability of scoring of all these chances out here are, but look how good a job he does of getting into the 6-yard box. Look how good a job he does of getting in here to score. And there's some really good video that you can show for that. And so there's two halves of it, right? The first is getting to the back post. So when we talk about where we want to get shots, like, there's been a lot of Enzo Maresca has talked about, like, I want my wingers to arrive here, and like, this is what Raheem Sterling does. And so you can see, like, soon as Jesus beats his man, he busts his ass to beat the fullback to get to the back post for a tap-in. Easiest goal you'll ever score, but he does the work to get there. You watch Sterling. Soon as the ball goes in behind, he is arriving at the back post for the scrub-a-dub-dub. He's making sure he gets to that spot. Watch this one. if you watch the movement off ball, soon as he sees Cancelo's head up, boom, along the line and in behind. Arrives at the spot to score. Here's another one. Soon as Gundogan makes the run, he comes from an offside position, times his run, arrives at the back post. Here's another one. Soon as Walker, I don't even know who this is, soon as whoever that is gets played in behind, arrive to finish. I think that's Gabby Jesus again. Here's another one. Arrive to finish. And over and over and over again, you build these habits, you build these moments of, I'm going to get to the back post. I'm going to get to the back post. I'm going to get inside the fullback and I'm going to get to the back post. I'm not out here. I'm in here. Right? I'm not floating for a cutback. I'm not here. I'm here. I'm not here. I'm here. I'm getting into the 6-yard box to score. Super valuable for young players. And while they're young, before they have the bad habits of like, you watch Mudryk who like sits outside here all the time. Like, can you bust your ass to get there and score is really, really valuable. So that is one big area of off-ball stuff I would focus on. And the other off-ball thing I would focus on is movement in behind. So we showed some of those clips in the George video where like he releases and gets in behind. And I've like cheated here because I have the tactical cam footage from the Spurs game, but like you can do so much watching Raheem Sterling in terms of prepping movements to get space in behind. And yes, Spurs played a crazy high line in this game, but like this is a really good one to show some good stuff. Like watch Sterling, he gives himself room off of the line, and then he runs along the line and behind into a great chance. Right? This ends up in a great moment. Here's another one. Plays inside to Palmer, is taking off in behind immediately. Gives himself room off the line so he can start, right? Like this is a big thing with Tyrique George, with Mudryk. If you start 2 yards off the line, if you're quicker than everybody and you start sprinting, you will get a breakaway. He's gone in behind. Here's another one. He gets caught on this one, but it's a great moment. Here's another one. Starts off the line, ball goes wide, I'm gone. This is the one that Chelsea end up scoring on. So, like, it's, again, just 4 clips. Like, this whole video, all the video I showed you was, like, 3 minutes. You don't have to do 8 hours of video. But showing these clips and talking about, here are the movements I want to see. Here's the end impact of how valuable that can be. And here's how you can have a career as great as Raheem Sterling or as great as Bukayo Saka, and you can become England's next star winger or whatever it is. This is the way to prime it for young players, I think. Anyways, that's going to be a video. We're going to cut the video and the podcast short here, and then we'll do some other stuff. But thank you all for watching. Tyrique George is a player I'm very, very excited about. So we'll cut that stuff there.